So far I've completed 4 mini pupillages, 1 in civil, 1 in commercial and 2 in crime. And you know what? There's actually a lot of thought that should be going into where you're applying for a mini. And then once you actually secure the placement, how you can go about making the most out of that experience in terms of content for your pupillage application, actually making connections with barristers while you're there, and then finally leaving a lasting impression on that set so they remember you when you come to apply for pupillage. And all of that we're going to get into in today's video. Guys, it's nice to have you back on the channel. If you're new here, my name's Taz and I recently completed the bar training course on my journey to qualifying as a barrister in England and Wales. I've set this channel up to support aspiring solicitors and barristers, but also I want to share my own interests outside of law, which mainly revolve around exploring the nature of our minds through materials, supplements and practices, all of which can contribute to optimizing our daily experiences. In the UK, the legal profession is split into 2 branches, the solicitor branch and the barrister branch. And basically, mini pupillages are a solicitor's equivalent of a vacation scheme. And what you're doing on that mini pupillage essentially is shadowing a barrister for either 3 or 5 days and learning about the role of what it is to be a barrister. Before we get into this, I want to make this point. A mini pupillage is a lot more valuable at chambers where you're actually going to be applying for pupillage. So don't just willy-nilly pick anywhere. Try and pick the sets where you intend on applying in the end. You know, my first mini pupillage was in Nottingham. I don't even know why Nottingham. I just had an offer from there. Even though I had no intention on ever living there, I was like, yeah, why not? Ultimately, not saying it was a waste, but would I do it again? No. First things first, in terms of the research, you want to know where are you wanting to apply, i.e. what circuit do you want to practice on? Do you want to work up north or do you want to work down south? And once you know that, then you can begin narrowing in on the sets. Once you know what circuit you want to work on, then the next question is, okay, what area of practice am I interested in? Because then you go from a huge pool of chambers to a very small pool which you can focus on. Once you have that pool, the next thing to do is get up an Excel spreadsheet and do a breakdown of each of those sets. What practice areas are they involved in? How many pupils have they taken on recently? What salary they're offering, etc, etc, etc. And basically the reason why it's so important to do that is this. You need to know exactly what type of candidate X set / chambers is interested in taking. Now, the way you go about doing that is just simply having a look. Who have they taken in the past 3-4 years? Are there any similarities in those candidates' application on paper? Once you know that, then you have more of an idea about what type of candidate they're interested in and how you marry up to them on paper. And that is not to say if you fall below the mark, don't apply. It's just so that you're aware of how you're spending your time. You know, the reality is there are sets down south that are known for only taking Oxbridge candidates. And look, I'm not hating on it. All I'm saying is this. Why spend time, hours, investing in an application that's likely, not definitely, likely going to go into the bin? So when you're on a strict time schedule, you want to be pumping out the most amount of applications which you think are going to penetrate through. People don't really talk about what demands mini pupillages tend to put on mini pupils: time and, more importantly, their finances. You know, when you're a student at university, you don't have money to go and spend 5 days in a hotel in a different city if you're planning on, you know, applying to that circuit. But the reality of the situation is, unfortunately, that's just something you've got to contend with. So if you've got to put up savings, you've got to do that. If you've got to mark out days at your job for holidays, then you've got to do that. You've got to do whatever you need to do. You need to remember these are self-employed barristers, so they're not going to pay from their pocket to house you to come do experience with them when they're giving up their time for you. I remember squirreling my pennies away to afford to be able to sleep in a 1-star hotel in Nottingham for 3 days on my first mini. And you know, it was a grim experience all round. I remember walking through the front door, there's a guy there with a joint smoking some weed in the corridor. Just thought, oh, lovely. Gone into my room, seen it's an absolute shack. All that smoke is just coming in and I'm lying there in bed thinking, oh my god, this suit stinks of weed and I've got a mini pupillage in the morning. Needless to say, it was a long 3 days. This is the question that everyone wants to know, and the answer is simply, it depends on your circumstances. The other week I had a call from an undergrad student saying that they were going to apply to the LPC next year, and I asked them, what's your situation? How much experience have you done? And they said, I've not done any. I was like, right, okay, why are you so confident that you want to be a solicitor? And they just said, what else is there? I was just thinking, like, you can't not do a mini pupillage as a law student. You need to be aware of both branches of the profession and make an informed decision about your future. But if you know you want to go down the barrister route, then do mini pupillages in your areas of interest, because that way you can rule out with certainty what areas you don't want to do and focus on the areas that you do want to do. And then once you know the area you want to do, I would recommend 3 mini pupillages in that area. In terms of the difference between a civil, a commercial, and a criminal mini pupillage, granted I haven't done many in civil or commercial, I can give you the broad overview of what the differences are going to be. For a civil mini, you'll probably be attending a county court somewhere to watch either a personal injury or a negligence case. You might attend a roundtable negotiations with a client and a counsel. Other than that, you might be given a skeleton argument to have a look at, and just other things really within the civil realm of litigation. For a commercial mini, unlike a civil or a criminal mini, you're probably going to spend the majority of your time at chambers. And while you're there, you're likely to be doing either an advice note or an opinion, some form of solving a contractual problem. Finally, my personal favourite, criminal mini pupillages, you're either going to be at a youth court, a magistrate's court, or potentially a crown court, maybe a court of appeal. And you'll be looking at either summary or either way offences. You'll have hopefully the opportunity to attend conference with counsel. Either way, you're probably going to be moving around a lot. You're going to be flinging around between courts, but it's going to be an exciting time, that's for sure. I'm going to break the next 3 sections up into before a mini, during a mini, and after the mini. So in terms of before the mini, basically just make sure you have that court wear, whether or not you're going to court. Standard practice, you know what it is, we've gone through it in the previous video. For guys, dark suits, for girls, equally similar colours. And other than that, brush up on your fundamentals. You need to know for your practice area, what is the overview, what are the basics of that area. And finally, make sure you email the clerks the week before your mini. During the mini, and the same for VAC schemes really, there's 2 things that matters. Number 1, how do I go about making great notes for my pupillage/training contract application? And the second is, how do I go about making a lasting impression on this set? So let's take each of those in turn, starting with note taking. On the point of notes, it's this simple. You want to take the best possible notes that you can for your pupillage application. So on this point, I'm going to refer to a barrister's work called David Boyle. He's actually published a book called the Mini-Pupillage Workbook, and it's actually got a great structure in there for how you should go about approaching the mini pupillage. In particular, his book outlines 4 questions that a mini pupil should be asking on the mini pupillage to make the most out of the experience. And number 1 is this: where have I been? So basically, make a note of the court/chambers that you attended. The second question is, what have I seen? And again, make a note. Is it a PTBH? Did you see an advice note? Did you draft an opinion? Whatever it is, get it down on paper. The third question is, who did I see? So basically, make a note of the barristers that you were shadowing or the judge that the hearings were before. The fourth and final question, and really it's the most important question of the bunch, is, what did I learn? Now that question is really all they care about seeing on the pupillage application. They don't just want to know, what did you see? They don't want the description, they want the substance of what it is that you took away from that experience. Let's get into the second part, which is, how can I go about making a lasting impression on this set so that they remember me when I come to apply for pupillage? The best way to answer this question is by going through what I've been told are the qualities that barristers look for in a mini pupil. Before we begin, I'll say this, and I've heard this at a few different sets, which are the horrible stories of a mini pupil coming to chambers and handing out legal advice. They don't want to hear it. you're not insured, you're not being paid, and you're not qualified to give advice. So don't be that mini pupil. Just hang back and enjoy the view. Remember, these aren't qualities of a barrister, these are qualities of a mini pupil. And I think I'd boil them down into these. Again, 4's the lucky number for this episode. Is number 1, be curious, ask questions. Number 2 is be enthusiastic on the mini pupillage. You know, they don't want someone coming in, not really bothered, couldn't really care, and not really interested. Number 3, be professional at all times. And number 4 is exercise an ability to read the room. And this basically means use your common sense, go with your gut instincts in certain situations where it might not be appropriate to say something, or it might just be best to hang back. After the mini pupillage, go out of your way to do something nice to the clerks that organise that week for you. Me personally, I would get a gift. It doesn't need to be crazy expensive. It can just be a token or a gesture to say thank you. I really do appreciate everything you've done for me. And the last thing to say on making connections is this. If you've hit it off with a barrister, or you've got along, you've clicked, then ask them for their email, ask them for their LinkedIn or WhatsApp, whatever it is. You just say, it'd be nice to stay in touch, but don't beg it. If you don't feel like there's been a nice relationship there, and barristers are like anyone else, you're not always going to get along with everyone. Don't chase it, you're better off just saying thanks for the week, really do appreciate it, see you later. That wraps up another one. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And please do let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, because I go through them and I try and take them all on board to make my content more informative for you guys. And if you want to support the channel, make sure to like and subscribe. It really does help me out. And other than that, guys, you know what it is. I'll see you at the next one.